If the fire burned you, why are you still sitting in the flames? You say you want to heal, but you're still living in the same chaos, breathing the same toxicity, surrounded by the same patterns that broke you. That's not healing. That's survival on repeat. You're calling it strength, but your nervous system is screaming. And deep down, wounds don't close where they keep getting reopened. Healing isn't just a matter of time passing. It's about what you're exposed to during that time. You can't recover from suffocation while still choking on the same air. You can't find peace while marinating in dysfunction. You can't rewire your brain for safety while staying inside the systems that taught it to live in fear. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but distance does. Boundaries do. Separation does. So let's stop sugarcoating it. If your environment is the trigger, no amount of journaling will save you. If the people around you are the wound, no amount of positive thinking will make them safe. Healing requires space, not just reflection. And until you make that space, you're not recovering. You're just coping in captivity. Let's break this down, not with comfort, but with clarity. This video is meant to support, not replace, your healing journey. Nothing here is medical advice, just guidance and reflection. Your environment is not just a physical space you occupy. It's the emotional atmosphere you breathe in every day, the subtle energy in interactions, the tone and weight of conversations, the unspoken rules and expectations you must navigate. This emotional climate seeps into your nervous system without you realizing it, molding how safe or threatened you feel at your core. When your environment is chaotic, critical, or neglectful, it becomes a force that shapes your mental and emotional landscape profoundly. Constant criticism, even if disguised as constructive feedback, sends a message to your brain. You're not good enough. You're always on trial. When this becomes the norm, your nervous system learns to brace for judgment, to anticipate rejection. This hypervigilance isn't paranoia, it's a survival strategy. Your body remains tense, ready to respond to perceived threats, and your mind spins into overdrive trying to predict and prevent the next attack. Over time, this creates chronic stress that chips away at your resilience. Emotional neglect is another silent toxin. When your feelings are ignored, minimized, or invalidated, your nervous system registers abandonment. This absence of emotional attunement creates a deep internal void, teaching your brain that expressing need or vulnerability leads to silence or punishment. As a result, you may shut down emotionally or detach from your own feelings to protect yourself from further pain. This disconnection becomes a default mode, a way to survive the absence of safety. Abuse, whether overt or covert, dramatically rewires your nervous system. Overt abuse teaches the brain to expect harm in obvious ways: loud threats, physical violence, explicit intimidation. Covert abuse, on the other hand, is subtler: manipulation, gaslighting, unpredictability. Both forms undermine your sense of safety and trust. Your body learns to live in a constant state of alert or freeze. This chronic dysregulation becomes embedded in your biology, affecting everything from sleep to digestion to emotional regulation. Chaos and instability create environments where the rules keep changing. When you can't predict what will happen next, your brain never fully relaxes. It's stuck scanning for danger, ready to respond. This constant tension wears down your capacity to manage stress and erodes your sense of control. Without a stable emotional ground, your nervous system flips between fight, flight, and freeze, all survival modes that aren't sustainable long-term. So this environment didn't just hurt you. It trained your mind and body to live in survival mode. Your hypervigilance, emotional numbness, or explosive reactions aren't flaws, they're adaptations. They were necessary once to keep you safe in an unsafe context. But now, in healing, the challenge is to recognize how deeply your environment shaped you, so you can begin to create the space your nervous system actually needs to rest, reset, and rebuild. Healing trauma isn't a simple timeline or a one-time event. It's a process that depends heavily on what you continue to expose yourself to. You can understand everything intellectually, the past pain, the patterns, the wounds, but if your present environment keeps triggering those old injuries, your nervous system remains on high alert. It's like trying to heal a cut while it's still being scraped open daily. No matter how much you want to move forward, the damage keeps freshening. If you're surrounded by gaslighting, where your reality is constantly questioned or denied, your mind starts doubting itself. Gaslighting doesn't just confuse you. It reactivates trauma circuits by undermining your sense of trust in your own perceptions. Each subtle dismissal or twisting of truth forces your nervous system to scramble, questioning safety at its foundation. That ongoing invalidation makes genuine healing impossible, because your brain can't settle into calm when its grip on reality feels shaky. Shaming works similarly by feeding your nervous system toxic signals about your worth and safety. When you're made to feel less than, too much, or not enough, your body internalizes those messages as threats. Shame triggers freeze and withdrawal responses, pulling you away from connection and safety. The constant exposure to shame rewires your brain to expect rejection, which keeps trauma alive and your nervous system primed for fight or flight. Healing can't take root in a soil saturated with shame. Guilt-tripping acts like emotional chains, pulling you back into old stories where you're responsible for harm or failure. This reinforces a toxic feedback loop. The more guilt you carry, the more anxious and defensive your nervous system becomes. Guilt is a powerful emotional toxin that prolongs survival mode by forcing you to constantly assess and repair imaginary breaches. When your environment keeps serving guilt, your brain is trapped in hypervigilance, unable to relax into healing. Conditional love, where care and acceptance depend on performance, compliance, or appearances, is a slow poison. It teaches your nervous system that love is unreliable and must be earned. This uncertainty sabotages your ability to experience safety and attachment, which are fundamental to healing trauma. Without consistent, unconditional connection, your nervous system stays dysregulated, always bracing for loss or rejection. You don't just survive trauma, you endure it repeatedly. Every time your nervous system senses danger, even in subtle ways, it flips back into ancient trauma responses. This constant reactivation blocks your brain from shifting into safety and repair modes. The healing brain and body need spaciousness, a quiet environment to recalibrate and rebuild trust. Healing is not just a matter of effort or willpower. It's fundamentally a matter of safety. Your brain and nervous system cannot begin to rewire or repair if they do not feel secure. No amount of journaling, breathwork, or therapy will truly reach their potential if the foundational condition, psychological safety, is missing. Without safety, these tools become like trying to teach someone to swim while they're still drowning in panic. Bessel van der Kolk in The Body Keeps the Score lays this out with clarity. The nervous system must feel safe before it can regulate emotions, process trauma, or build new pathways. When you're in a state of constant threat, real or perceived, your body's priority is survival, not healing. It's stuck in fight, flight, or freeze modes, flooding with stress hormones and shutting down parts of the brain responsible for reflection and growth. Safety is the soil in which recovery takes root. Psychological safety goes beyond physical safety. You might be physically out of harm's way, but if your environment is filled with criticism, unpredictability, emotional neglect, or subtle abuse, your nervous system stays on edge. That chronic activation sabotages your capacity to relax, to feel grounded, and to connect with your own internal experience. It's like trying to build a house on shifting sand. No matter how well you design the blueprint, the foundation won't hold. This is why intellectual understanding isn't enough. You can know the facts about trauma and healing, but if your current environment keeps triggering your survival responses, your brain won't absorb that knowledge in a way that transforms your nervous system. Insight becomes information only, disconnected from felt experience. The missing link is safety, the essential context where growth and regulation become possible. Creating psychological safety requires clear boundaries, consistency, and trustworthy relationships. It means protecting your internal space from people, systems, or patterns that re-traumatize. It means developing internal safety skills like grounding and self-soothing, but also demanding external safety by stepping away or changing what isn't working. Without this, healing is like pushing a boulder uphill without rest. So the hard truth is this: healing doesn't begin until safety is established. It's non-negotiable. If the environment that broke you keeps reopening wounds, therapy, meditation, or positive thinking won't stick. Your system needs time and space to calm, to reclaim control, and to rewrite survival codes. And that starts with you protecting your sanctuary, your mind, body, and soul, fiercely and without apology. Here's the brutal truth most people won't say out loud. Staying stuck in toxic environments often isn't about ignorance or weakness. It's about loyalty. Loyalty to familiarity, to the stories you tell yourself, to the people or patterns that shaped you. Even when those things are damaging, they feel like the only option because they're what you've always known. Walking away feels like betrayal of family, of friends, of your own history. But in truth, it's the first real act of self-preservation. Guilt is a powerful shackle. You might carry the burden of what if and who will be hurt if I leave. You might believe that enduring pain is your responsibility, or that leaving means you're abandoning those who need you. These feelings are real, but they're also toxic. They trap you in a cycle where your own needs become invisible and your spirit withers. Loyalty to pain is loyalty to suffering, and that's not strength. It's slow destruction. We also normalize dysfunction when it's all we've ever experienced. If chaos, criticism, or neglect was your normal, your brain learned to accept it as safe, even when it wasn't. Abuse gets mistaken for love because the line between the two blurs over time. Tolerating mistreatment becomes a badge of endurance, not a sign to run. But confusing survival with thriving means you're settling for a version of life that's far below what you deserve. There's no prize for loyalty to what's killing you. No medal for staying quiet when your boundaries are violated. No applause for sacrificing your mental health for the illusion of connection. The real strength lies in breaking the cycle, in choosing freedom over familiarity, healing over guilt, and your well-being over obligation. That courage isn't easy, but it's necessary. Walking away isn't betrayal. It's an act of courage. It's telling yourself that you matter enough to seek safety and peace. It's setting a boundary that protects your nervous system from further damage. When you leave toxic dynamics behind, you create the space your mind and body need to breathe, heal, and grow. That's not turning your back. It's turning toward life. So if you find yourself stuck in the flames, remember, loyalty to familiar pain delays your freedom. You don't owe your survival to the wounds that harmed you. Healing begins when you claim the right to leave the fire behind. and step into a space that nurtures your wholeness. Sometimes the most powerful step toward healing isn't something you do internally. It's something you do externally. You need physical distance from the people, places, or patterns that keep reopening old wounds. When you stay too close to the source of trauma, your nervous system stays on high alert, locked in survival mode. The constant exposure acts like a fog, blurring your sense of self and clouding your judgment. Stepping back creates the breathing room necessary for clarity. This isn't about running away or avoiding responsibility. It's about creating a space where your nervous system can calm down enough to hear your true thoughts and feelings. When the chaos isn't pressing in, your body can begin to release adrenaline and cortisol. Your brain stops scrambling for threats and starts to reconnect with your deeper self. This pause allows you to distinguish between what was manipulation and what was genuine care, what was control and what was kindness. Physical or emotional distance also helps you reclaim your boundaries. Often, trauma blurs the lines of what is acceptable and what isn't. When you're immersed in toxic dynamics, it's hard to see where you end and someone else begins. Distance lets you untangle those boundaries, giving you space to ask, what do I actually want? What feels safe? What am I willing to tolerate? And what do I refuse? This clarity is the foundation for setting new, healthy limits. Healing is not just about changing your habits or mindset. It's about shifting your environment in a way that supports your recovery. You can meditate, journal, and do all the inner work, but if you keep returning to the same toxic spaces, it's like watering a plant with salt water. You need an environment that nurtures growth, a place where your nervous system can rest and your spirit can begin to thrive. Sometimes that shift requires literal movement, moving out of a home, changing jobs, or stepping back from relationships. Other times, it's about creating emotional distance, saying no more, setting firm boundaries, or disengaging from harmful conversations. Both forms of distance send a clear message to your brain. I'm choosing safety. I'm choosing healing. This message is crucial for rewiring old survival patterns. In short, physical distance isn't avoidance, it's clarity. It's the space your mind and body need to reconnect with who you really are beneath the trauma. Without that space, healing gets stuck in limbo and old wounds keep bleeding. Give yourself permission to step back, breathe, and see your life through fresh eyes. That's where freedom begins. Healing starts the moment you step into a space where your nervous system can finally exhale. Whether that space is a therapist's office, a supportive friendship, moments of solitude, or the act of creative expression, these environments do more than soothe. They reshape your very sense of self. Safe environments send a powerful signal. Here you are seen, accepted, and valued. And when your brain hears that, it begins to rewire what it believes about who you are. You're not too sensitive as you may have been told or felt. You were simply in an environment that was too harsh, where survival required heightened alertness and emotional armor. In these safer spaces, sensitivity becomes a strength, a sign of deep awareness and empathy, not a flaw. You begin to shed the protective layers that once kept you safe but now weigh you down, allowing your true self to breathe and emerge. You're not weak. Feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, or burned out isn't a failure of character. It's the natural response of a system taxed beyond its limits. When no one else could carry the burden, your mind and body took it on to survive. In new, nurturing environments, that overwhelming load can finally be laid down, and strength is redefined not as endless endurance, but as the courage to ask for and accept support. You're not broken no matter how deeply the past pain cut. What looks like brokenness is often the brain and body reacting exactly as they were wired to do to chaos, neglect, or trauma. Safe environments allow you to see these reactions as adaptations, not defects. This shift in perspective is revolutionary. It opens the door to self-compassion and invites you to treat yourself as a human who has survived, not as a problem to be fixed. Safe spaces do more than heal wounds. They remind you of who you were before the world told you to shrink, hide, or mute your light. They help you rediscover your values, your voice, and your desires, parts of you that trauma obscured but never erased. In these spaces, your identity starts to expand beyond survival tactics into fuller expressions of your authentic self. You can learn every detail about your trauma, map out every wound, and still remain stuck if you keep living inside the very system that broke you. Insight alone isn't enough. It's powerful, yes, but environment is louder. The people you surround yourself with, the energy you absorb daily, the narratives you replay in your mind, they all keep your nervous system locked in survival mode. Ask yourself this hard question: am I trying to heal inside the same place that caused my pain? If the answer is yes, no amount of therapy, meditation, or positive thinking will create lasting change. Because your brain isn't wired for growth in a habitat of harm. It needs safety, distance, and boundaries to reset. So the next step isn't another self-help book or motivational quote. It's courage to say no to what drains you. The courage to walk away from toxic people, dysfunctional dynamics, and harmful environments. The courage to choose differently, even if it's uncomfortable, lonely, or uncertain. Healing begins at the edge of what's familiar and damaging. It starts where the damage stops. Boundaries aren't walls to keep others out. They're gates to protect your nervous system, your soul, your future. Without them, insight is just theory. With them, insight becomes transformation. You owe yourself that courage, because freedom, peace, and true healing don't come from understanding alone. They come from reclaiming your space to grow, breathe, and become whole again.